You're listening to an extract of the Leader podcast. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts.
The Prime Minister has said that he has paid for the expenses of redecoration. I don't have any other information, Dan, that has been shared with me. That's what the PM said, and I take him absolutely on his word.
Today's coffee. The Work and Pension Secretary trusts Boris Johnson. She went on national TV, BBC Breakfast in this case, and said so. But the country as a whole, maybe not so much. An exclusive poll for the Evening Standards found 6 in 10 Britons find the Prime Minister untrustworthy. Keir Starmer comes out better in the Ipsos Mori survey, with 41% thinking he's not to be trusted. The poll was taken before the Let the Bodies Pile High row, which the PM denies ever saying, but it did follow the weeks of revelations about covert lobbying and the redecoration of the Downing Street flat. Mr Johnson says he paid for that himself, but Dominic Cummings claims the Prime Minister wanted donors to foot the bill. It's alleged Conservative campaign headquarters paid initial costs returned to them by Mr Johnson, but one senior Tory says the PM needed to take out a loan to cover it. The Prime Minister earns a salary of £157,372 a year, so why is Boris Johnson so broke? Evening Standard's Susanna Butter has been looking at that very question, and she's with me now. Susanna, where's all the money going?
If we talk about what it's not going on rent. He pays £7,000 a year on running costs for Downing Street, and he doesn't have to commute. None of us are really going out much or spending money on restaurants or fun things like that. But actually, if you drill down into it, first of all, it's a huge pay cut for him. Before he became Prime Minister, he was on £800,000 from newspaper columns, speeches, book royalties, TV, and he famously called his, I think it was £275,000 a year salary from the Telegraph chicken feed. But also he's finally got through his divorce, and a lot of the money's gone to his ex-wife, Marina Wheeler, and then he's got 4 children with her, one of whom is still at university. There's this child with Helen McIntyre, an art advisor. They had an affair, which ended in a child. So he's got to pay for that, obviously. Then there's baby Wilfred.
So there are clearly a lot of outgoings there, Susanna, and that cut in his income. But then, even when he was earning more than he is as Prime Minister, did he ever really give that impression of being somebody who has a lot of money?
If you look back, despite the fact that he is from an immensely privileged background, he earns a lot. There's a lot of stories. There's kind of people at university who made bets with him and he didn't pay it back. There's stories about him not paying for coffees at The Spectator. A story from his former boss, Max Hastings, at the Daily Telegraph. They had a bet about the 2010 election. Boris Johnson lost. Not very good political judgment there. Hastings chased it up. Johnson sent a letter saying cheque enclosed, and there was no cheque, which is a pretty old trick. Going back, he went to Eton, but he wasn't a scholarship, so he was always around more wealth, and very aware of that, and very aware that as the eldest of the family, he was the one who'd have to provide.
But is he not just quite frugal, really? He doesn't have lavish tastes, does he? And I mean, you write in your piece about an old hoodie that he just kept forever. Old
Bluey the hoodie, until it was unravelling as he wore it. Yeah, there's that. He likes Pizza Express, kind of his idea of being extravagant is splashing out on extra dough balls for the table. He's got a really old car. I think it's a Toyota. But it's not just him. There's Carrie Simons, and she seems to not like John Lewis, which is another issue that could prove quite politically divisive for those who think that John Lewis is actually sort of a sign that you've made it. John Lewis is, just looking around at my house, most of it's from IKEA. I dream of John Lewis. So yeah, it's not just him. She has paid for some of their holidays, but she's not on. So Marina, his ex-wife, was a QC, so she had a pretty decent salary. Carrie hasn't been working. She's just started her new job. She does have a house in Camberwell, but I don't think they want to rent that out. She still goes there sometimes. They can't afford a nanny, so if they want a break from the baby, they've got that house to take the baby to.
It seems mad that the Prime Minister can't afford a nanny, though, doesn't it?
I mean, they've got Carrie's mum who comes in and does some childcare. It's just all odd, isn't it? Because to the outside world, he looks fairly well off, to say the least. But he is paid less than a lot of prime ministers around the world. But I mean, it still sounds like a huge amount of money, especially in a pandemic when people are losing their jobs.
What about his book royalties from and the things he did before he became Prime Minister?
There's about £10,500 from book royalties. There was meant to be another book on Shakespeare, which has been in the works for a very long time, and that would have obviously generated more royalties, more incomings. But he's had a lot on his plate. He hasn't had time to finish it. So there's the weight from that. I suppose if you were budgeting for the money from that and then that hasn't come through either, that's not very good. And then he's spoken a lot about how he has to pay for all the food at Downing Street and Chequers. They've been getting all those Daylesford takeaways, which are very expensive as well.
To be fair, historically, he's not the first Prime Minister to have had questions raised about his finances, is he?
No, he'll be thinking about his political pin-up, Winston Churchill, who was always on the brink of bankruptcy. I mean, possibly Winston Churchill had it worse and kind of sent these letters saying he was always really, really worried about money. That was completely at the forefront of his mind and informed a lot of what he does. So Boris will be aware of that. I don't know whether that will give him some comfort. Who knows?
Susanna Butter there. Read her article at standard.co.uk, and we've got loads more political coverage from our top team. Joe Murphy's written up the results of that exclusive poll. You'll find it all on the website.